Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story is different from anything we've covered before. Usually, we hear from the men themselves, the ones who fell, who lost everything, who woke up one day in a strange country, wondering how their dream turned into a nightmare. But today, we're hearing from someone who watched it happen from the other side of the world. Someone who saw the signs, felt the helplessness, and ultimately made a decision that would change everything. This is the story of Derek Walsh, a 52-year-old construction supervisor from Perth, Western Australia. Derek is what you'd call a practical man. He's the kind of bloke who fixes things with his hands, who built his own deck, who can tell you exactly what's wrong with your plumbing just by listening. He raised his son alone after his wife walked out when the boy was 7, worked double shifts to keep the lights on, coached junior footy on Saturdays, and never missed a parent-teacher conference. He's not the type to make impulsive decisions. He's not the type to book a one-way ticket to a foreign country fueled by rage and desperation. But that's exactly what he did. Derek didn't fly to Thailand for a holiday. He didn't go for the beaches or the temples or the famous street food. He flew to Pattaya with one purpose burning in his chest: to confront the woman who drained his son's bank account, shattered his mental health, and left him so broken he ended up in a Bangkok hospital after a suicide attempt. This is a story about parental love and its limits, about watching someone you die for make choices you can't control, about the moment you realise protection isn't enough, and sometimes the only thing left to do is bear witness to the pain. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt helpless watching someone you love self-destruct. If you've been on either side of this kind of story, share your experience below. And if this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button. You're not alone in this. Not now. Here's Derek. I need to tell you about my son first, because none of this makes sense without understanding who Tom is. Tom's my only kid. 28 years old, smart as a whip, works in IT, doing something with networks and security that I've never fully understood, no matter how many times he's explained it. He's always been a quiet kid, a bit sensitive, the type who feels things deeply. His mother leaving hit him hard, even though he was young. I did my best. We were mates, him and me. I taught him to fix cars, took him fishing up north, brought him onto job sites during school holidays so he could learn what real work looked like. He had a girlfriend for 3 years in his early 20s, Sarah. Lovely girl. I thought they'd end up married. Then she left him for some bloke she met at a gym, and Tom just folded inward like a piece of paper. He went quiet, started working from home more, stopped going out with his mates. I'd call him and he'd say he was fine, just busy, just tired. But I could hear it in his voice. That flatness, that distance. I didn't push. I'm not great with feelings, never have been. I figured he'd work through it in his own time. Blokes do. Then about 8 months after the breakup, Tom rang me up and said he was going to Thailand for a month. He'd been saving up, needed a break, wanted to do some travelling while he still could work remotely. I thought it was brilliant, exactly what he needed. A bit of sun, adventure, perspective. Get out of his own head. He sent photos from Bangkok in the first week. The Grand Palace, some night market, him holding a coconut on a beach. He looked good, genuinely happy. The kind of smile I hadn't seen on his face in over a year. I felt this weight lift off my chest. My boy was going to be all right. The month came and went. Tom extended his trip, said he was having a great time, found some cool places down south, met some good people. I didn't think anything of it. He was young, single, working remote. Why not stay a bit longer? Then he extended again, and again. By the 3rd month, something in his voice changed. The phone calls became shorter, vaguer. He'd answer my questions with half sentences. When I asked what he was up to, he'd say just hanging out, just working, just enjoying the weather. He mentioned the girl named Mint, said he'd met someone, said he was in love. I was happy for him. Honestly, I was. He sounded lighter when he talked about her. He said she was beautiful, kind, different from anyone he'd ever met. He said maybe he'd stay a bit longer, see where things went. That's when my gut started talking to me. The same instinct that used to tell me when Tom was 13 and lying about where he'd been after school. Something was off. But what was I supposed to do? He was 28, a grown man. I couldn't tell him how to live his life. The calls became less frequent after that. Once a week, then every 2 weeks. When we did talk, he sounded distracted. He stopped mentioning Mint by name, just referred to her as she or her. His answers got defensive when I asked simple questions. Where are you staying? How's work going? When are you thinking of coming home? I don't know, Dad. I'm figuring it out. Don't worry about it. Then came the first ask. He rang me on a Tuesday afternoon, my time, morning for him. He sounded rough, tired. He did this thing where he talked around the point for 5 minutes before he finally just came out with it. He needed money, $5,000. Said there was a business opportunity, something about a cafe or a shop. He and Mint were thinking of investing. It would set them up. He just needed a bit of capital to get started. Every alarm in my head went off. But what do you say to your son when he's asking for help? When you hear that edge of desperation in his voice? I sent it. I told myself maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe he really had found something good over there. Maybe this girl was genuine and they were building something real. 2 weeks later, he asked for more. $3,000 this time. Mint's mother was sick, needed surgery. The family didn't have money for the hospital. If he could just help them out, it would mean everything. They pay him back. I sat in my truck in a parking lot staring at my phone after that call. My hands were shaking. I knew, deep in my bones, I knew what was happening. But Tom was still my son. He was asking for help. What kind of father says no? I sent the money. I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks after that. I called. It rang out. I texted. Nothing. I messaged him on Facebook. Seen not no reply. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night imagining every terrible scenario. He was in jail. He'd been hurt. He'd gotten involved with the wrong people. I called the Australian embassy in Bangkok, but they couldn't tell me anything without a formal missing person report, and he wasn't technically missing, just not answering. Then I got the call. It was a Thursday morning, just after 6. I was getting ready for work. Unknown number. International. A woman's voice. Professional, accented. She said she was calling from a hospital in Bangkok. They had a patient named Thomas Walsh. He'd been brought in 2 days prior. Unresponsive. Overdose. They'd found him in his apartment after a neighbour reported a smell and the door left open. He was alive. Stable. But he'd taken a serious amount of pills mixed with alcohol. If they'd found him a few hours later, he wouldn't have made it. They needed payment for the medical treatment. They needed family contacted. They needed someone to come. I don't remember much of the rest of that call. I think I said I'd be there. I think I said whatever you need, just take care of him. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called my boss, told him I had a family emergency, didn't know when I'd be back, booked a flight online, pursed to Bangkok, leaving that night. One way. I threw clothes in a bag without thinking about what I was packing, called my brother, asked him to check on my house. Didn't explain. Couldn't. Sitting in the airport waiting for my flight, I felt this cold clarity settle over me. Tom had tried to kill himself. My son, the kid I raised, the boy who used to fall asleep on my chest watching footy, had been so destroyed by whatever happened over there that he wanted to die. And I knew exactly who was responsible. I didn't just book that ticket to bring Tom home. I booked it to find Mint, to look her in the eyes, to make her see what she'd done. I didn't have a plan beyond that. Didn't know what I'd say or do. Just knew I couldn't sit in Perth doing nothing while my son was broken in a hospital bed halfway across the world. The flight was 14 hours. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the seat in front of me, replaying every phone call, every conversation, every moment I should have pushed harder or asked better questions. I thought about the money. $8,000. Tom's savings were probably gone too. Everything he'd worked for just evaporated into the hands of a woman who saw him as a mark. But it wasn't really about the money. It was about my boy. My son, who'd always been sensitive, who'd already been hurt, who went looking for connection in a place designed to sell it. I thought about all the stories I'd heard over the years. Blokes from work who'd gone to Thailand and come back with wild tales. Some funny, some sad, some that made you uncomfortable. I'd always thought they were exaggerations. Thought the men were idiots who should have known better. Now my son was one of those stories. The plane landed in Bangkok just after dawn. The heat hit me the second I stepped out of the airport. Thick, wet, heavy. The taxi ride to the hospital was a blur of traffic and noise and buildings I didn't recognize. Everything felt wrong. Foreign. Hostile. I found the ward. Gave his name. A nurse led me down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and something sweet I couldn't place. And then I saw him. Tom was in a bed by the window. Tom, so much thinner than the last time I'd seen him. His skin was pale, almost grey. He had an IV in his arm and monitoring wires stuck to his chest. His eyes were closed. I stood in the doorway and felt my knees go weak. The nurse said something in broken English. He's awake sometimes. You can sit. I sat in the plastic chair next to his bed and took his hand. It felt small, fragile. This was my son, my boy. The kid who used to climb on my shoulders to see over fences. The teenager who'd helped me build a retaining wall one summer, working shirtless in the sun, laughing when we got the measurements wrong. Now he was this. His eyes opened slowly. It took him a moment to focus. When he saw me, something broke in his face. Shame, relief, horror. All of it at once. Dad, he whispered. I'm here, mate. I'm here. He started crying, not big sobs, just silent tears running down his cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I held his hand tighter. We'll talk later. Right now you just rest. I'm not going anywhere. He closed his eyes again. I sat there for hours just watching him breathe, making sure his chest kept rising and falling. I didn't ask about Min yet. I didn't ask about the money or what happened or why. That could wait. First, I just needed him to live. Tom stayed in that hospital for 5 more days. I barely left his side, slept in the chair next to his bed, ate whatever food the hospital cafe had, showered in a tiny bathroom down the hall that never had hot water. None of it mattered. I just needed to be there when he woke up. Needed him to see that someone gave a damn. The first 2 days he barely spoke. Just stared at the ceiling or out the window at the Bangkok skyline. I didn't push. I'd sit there reading news on my phone or watching Thai television I couldn't understand, just being present. The doctors said he was physically stable, but they wanted a psychiatric evaluation before discharge. They kept using words like ideation and intervention and monitoring. Clinical words for my son wanting to end his life. On the 3rd day, he finally started talking. It came out in fragments, disjointed pieces of a story he could barely stand to tell. He'd stare at his hands or the IV line while he spoke, never at me. I just listened. He met her in Pattaya, 2 months into his trip. He'd gone down there because some backpackers in Bangkok said it was worth seeing, even if it was a bit seedy. He wasn't looking for anything. Wasn't looking for girls or bars or whatever reputation the place had. He just wanted to see the beach. He went to Walking Street one night because that's what tourists do. It was overwhelming at first, he said. The noise, the lights, the crowds, girls everywhere calling out to passers-by. He felt uncomfortable, was about to leave. Then he saw her. Mint was working at a bar near the end of the street. She wasn't calling out like the others. She was just sitting there, looking bored, scrolling through her phone. Tom said she looked different. Sad, maybe. Real, he went in. Ordered a beer. She came over to talk. Her English was decent. She asked where he was from, what he did, how long he'd been in Thailand. Normal questions. She laughed at his jokes. Seemed genuinely interested. She told him her name was Mint. She was from Isan, up north. She had a daughter, 5 years old, living with her mother. She worked in Pattaya to send money home. Tom said he felt something click. She wasn't pushy, wasn't performing. Just talking to him like a human being. They chatted for over an hour. When he left, she gave him her line ID, said if he wanted to hang out outside the bar sometime, as friends, she'd like that. He messaged her the next day. They met for lunch. Then dinner. Then she showed him around Pattaya, places tourists didn't usually see. Local markets, quiet beaches, a temple on a hill. Within a week, they were spending every day together. Tom's voice got quieter as he told me this part. He said she made him feel seen, made him feel like he mattered. After Sarah, after months of feeling invisible and hollow, here was this beautiful woman who wanted to be around him, who asked about his life, who held his hand walking down the street. I wanted to interrupt, wanted to tell him it was her job. That's what they do. But I kept my mouth shut. He needed to say it all. After 2 weeks, Mint told him she wanted to quit bar work. Said she hated it. Hated the way men looked at her. Hated lying to her daughter about what she did for money. She had a dream of opening a small salon, doing hair and nails. Something respectable. Something that would make her daughter proud. Tom asked how much it would cost. She said maybe 200,000 baht to get started, about 8,000 Australian dollars. She wasn't asking him for it, just sharing her dream. Tom decided right then he wanted to help her. He told himself it wasn't about buying her affection. It was about helping someone he cared about build a better life. He had savings, he was working remote, he could afford it. He rented them an apartment in Pattaya, nicer than the backpacker hostels he'd been staying in. 2 bedrooms, so it didn't feel like he was assuming anything. Mint moved in. They played house. She cooked for him. They watched movies. She'd curl up next to him on the couch and he'd feel this warmth he hadn't felt in years. That's when the request started. Small at first. Her phone broke. Could he help her get a new one? Her daughter needed new school uniforms. Her mother's medication was expensive this month. Every time, Mint would cry and apologize and say she hated asking. Every time, Tom would tell her it was fine. He wanted to help. What's a few $100s to make someone's life easier? Then, bigger things. Her mother got sick. Really sick. Needed to see a specialist in Bangkok. The tests alone were 50,000 baht. Tom sent it. Mint showed him photos of her mother in a hospital bed. Showed him medical documents he couldn't read, but that looked official enough. Her brother had a motorcycle accident. Needed surgery. Another 60,000 baht. Tom was starting to feel the financial pressure, but he couldn't say no. This was her family, people she loved. What kind of person would he be if he refused? I asked him at this point if he ever suspected anything. He went quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Yeah, Dad. Deep down, I knew. But I didn't want to see it. Because if I admitted what was really happening, I'd have to admit I was being scammed. I'd have to admit she didn't actually love me, and I couldn't face that. He told me about the cognitive dissonance, how he'd lie awake at night next to her, watching her sleep, having this war in his head, part of him screaming that this was all fake, that he was being used. Another part arguing back. She's different. She really cares. These are just bad circumstances. Once things stabilize, it'll be good. He kept sending money. His savings evaporated. He maxed out a credit card, then another. When I sent him the 5,000, he gave it straight to Mint. Said it was for the business they were starting together. She showed him a shopfront they were supposedly negotiating for, took him there one afternoon. It was real. Empty, but real. He let himself believe. The 3,000 I sent after that went to her mother's surgery. Mint showed him more hospital photos, more documents. Her gratitude felt real. She held him that night and told him he was the best man she'd ever met. He let himself believe that too. Then one morning, about 3 weeks ago, he woke up and she was gone. Not just out for the morning. Gone. Her clothes cleared out, her toiletries, her photos, everything. The apartment was half empty. Her phone number was disconnected. Her Line account blocked him. Tom said he sat on the floor of that apartment for 6 hours, just staring at the space where her stuff used to be. He tried to find her. Went to the bar where they'd met. The mama-san said Mint didn't work there anymore, hadn't for months. Showed him a photo of a completely different girl using that name now. He tried to find the family members he'd met. The brother, the cousin, the friend. None of them knew him when he approached them on the street. They looked at him like he was crazy. The shop front they were going to rent. The owner had no idea what he was talking about. No one named Mint had inquired about the space. Tom went back to the apartment and did the math. Over $30,000. Gone. Everything he'd saved working 60-hour weeks for 3 years. Money I'd sent him. Money he'd borrowed on credit cards he couldn't pay back. And worse than the money was the realization. She never loved him. Never even liked him. He was just a job. A source of income. Every smile, every touch, every moment he'd thought was real connection was just performance. He said the shame was worse than the heartbreak. Shame that he'd been so stupid. That he'd ignored every red flag. That he'd let loneliness make him delusional. Shame that he'd have to tell me, tell his friends, admit what happened. He isolated in that apartment for 2 weeks. Drank, stopped answering messages. Stopped working. His company sent him warnings about missed deadlines. He didn't care. What was the point of any of it? He couldn't come home. Couldn't face walking back into his old life as the idiot who got scammed by a bargirl. Couldn't face my disappointment, even though I'd never say it. Couldn't face existing in a world where he'd been that foolish. So he decided not to exist anymore. He told me this part matter-of-factly. Clinical. Like he was describing someone else's decision. He bought pills from a pharmacy. They don't ask many questions in Thailand. Bought a bottle of whiskey. Wrote me a note on his laptop, but never sent it. Took the pills, drank the whiskey, lay down on the bed, and waited. His neighbour, an older Thai man, noticed his door was ajar 2 days later. Noticed a smell. Called an ambulance. Tom looked at me after he finished talking. His eyes were hollow. "I'm sorry I wasted your money, Dad. I'm sorry I'm such a bloody idiot." I stood up and hugged him. Just held him while he cried into my shoulder like he was 7 years old again. "You're not an idiot. You're human, and I don't give a damn about the money. I only care that you're alive." But even as I said it, I felt this rage building in my chest. White hot, burning. Mint had done this. Some woman I'd never met had systematically destroyed my son for profit, and then vanished like smoke. I made a decision that night, sitting in that hospital chair while Tom slept. I was going to Pattaya. I was going to find her. I didn't know what I'd do when I did, but I needed to try, for Tom, for myself, for some sense that justice existed in the world. Tom begged me not to when I told him the next morning, said it was pointless. She was gone. Girls like her don't get found unless they want to be. Said it would just make everything worse, bring more attention to his humiliation. I didn't care. I took the bus to Pattaya 2 days before Tom was discharged. 3-hour ride through countryside and industrial zones, and finally to the coast. I'd never been to Pattaya before. Didn't know what to expect beyond what I'd seen in movies and heard in stories. Nothing prepared me for walking street. I arrived in the evening when the place was just waking up. The street itself was closed to traffic, lined with bars that all looked identical. Neon signs, loud music, girls in bikinis or short dresses dancing on stages or calling out to men walking past. The tourists were mostly older blokes, 50s, 60s, some even older. Western men with bellies and sandals, and that particular look of desperation dressed up as adventure. I felt sick. This was where my son met her. This was the ecosystem that created the woman who destroyed him. I started showing her photo around. I'd pulled it from Tom's phone, a selfie of them together on a beach. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Young, maybe mid-20s. Bright smile. Most people ignored me or shook their heads. A few bar owners told me to piss off. One aggressive tout told me I was wasting my time, should just have a drink and enjoy myself. I kept walking. Showed the photo to security guards, to street vendors, to other girls working the bars. Nothing. Then an older woman, clearly no longer working as a bargirl but managing one of the venues, looked at the photo for a long time. She said something in Thai to another woman, then looked at me. "You her boyfriend?" she asked. "No, my son." She nodded slowly, gestured for me to follow her away from the noise. We stood in an alley between 2 bars. She lit a cigarette. I know this girl, not this name probably. They use different names. But I know her face. "Where is she?" I asked. The woman laughed. "Not mean, just tired. Gone. Girls like this, they work season. Come to Pattaya, find Farang with money, take everything, disappear. Maybe go back to village. Maybe go to Bangkok, Phuket, somewhere else. Change hair, change name, start again. I need to find her," I said. She destroyed my son. Took everything from him. The woman looked at me with something like pity. "Your son is not first. Will not be last. This girl, maybe she has 10, 20 men like your son every year. Some worse. Some maybe kill themselves. She does not care. This is business." I felt my hands clench into fists. Business. My son's life was business. The woman finished her cigarette, looked at me carefully. "You want advice? Go home. Take your son. Forget this girl. You will not find her. And if you find her, what you do? Hit her. Police will arrest you, not her. Yell at her? She will not care. You think you are first angry father to come looking. This happens all the time." She walked away, back to her bar, leaving me standing in that alley. I spent the next 3 hours walking street. Went into bars. Drank overpriced beers. Watched the machine work. Watched young women flirt with old men. Watched transactions happen disguised as connection. Some of the girls looked bored. Some looked sad. Some looked predatory. I tried to hate them, tried to see them as villains, but mostly I just felt empty. I thought about what the mama-san had said, that this happened all the time. That Mint probably had a real boyfriend somewhere. Maybe a house she was building with scam money. Maybe a whole other life. That Tom was just one mark among many. The rage I'd carried from Perth started dissolving into something worse. Helplessness. I couldn't find her. And even if I could, what would it change? Tom would still be broken. The money would still be gone. The betrayal would still be real. I sat in a bar around midnight, nursing a beer, watching an older German man laugh with a girl who couldn't have been more than 22. She was touching his arm, smiling. He looked happy, hopeful, like he'd found something real. I wondered if Tom had looked like that. Probably did. Probably sat in a bar just like this one, feeling like the luckiest man alive because a beautiful woman was paying attention to him. I left Walking Street around 2 in the morning, took a motorbike taxi back to my hotel, lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan going around and around. I'd come here for revenge, for confrontation, for some moment of catharsis where I could look evil in the face and make it accountable. But there was no evil to confront. Just a system, just a machine designed to extract money from loneliness. Mint was a cog in that machine, maybe a willing one, maybe not. Didn't matter. I flew back to Bangkok the next morning, went straight to the hospital. Tom was being discharged that afternoon. The psych evaluation had cleared him for travel with supervision. They gave me a list of therapists in Australia, a prescription for antidepressants, paperwork about warning signs. We flew home 3 days later. Tom slept most of the flight. I watched him breathe, same as I had in the hospital, just making sure. We didn't talk about Mint on the plane, didn't talk about the money or what happened. Just sat in silence, crossing the ocean back to the life he'd tried to escape. Perth was cold when we landed. Winter. Tom shivered walking through the airport. I'd forgotten he'd been in tropical heat for months. I took him to my place. He stayed in his old bedroom for 2 weeks, barely coming out. I'd hear him crying sometimes at night. Didn't go in. Just stood outside the door, feeling useless. Slowly, he started coming back. Started eating meals with me. Started answering messages from his friends with vague explanations about a rough time overseas. Started therapy. The sessions were twice a week at first. He'd come home exhausted, wouldn't talk about it. But gradually, incrementally, I saw him rebuild. It took months. He got a new job, something less demanding than before. Moved back into his own place after half a year, started going out occasionally. It took almost 2 years before I saw him smile the way he used to. A real smile, not the performative ones he'd wear when he thought I was watching. We've never talked in detail about Thailand again. He knows I went to Pattaya. I told him I didn't find her. He just nodded. Said he wasn't surprised. Said it didn't matter anyway. But sometimes I catch him staring off into space with this look on his face. Loss. Shame. Sadness. The ghost of it still lives in him. Maybe always will. I'm telling this story because I know there are other fathers out there, other mothers, other friends and partners watching someone they love fall into this trap, watching them send money, watching them make excuses, watching them defend someone who's clearly using them. And you'll feel helpless because you are. You can't force them to see it, can't make them stop, can't protect them from their own choices. I don't know if flying to Thailand was the right thing to do. I didn't find Mint, didn't get justice, didn't even get closure. But I showed up. I witnessed my son's pain. I carried him home when he couldn't walk himself. And he's alive today. Damaged, but alive. Building a life again. Slower. More carefully. With walls up that might never come down. If you're watching someone you love go through this, I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is different. But I can tell you this. Show up. Even when it's pointless. Even when it changes nothing. Because sometimes being there is the only thing you can do. And sometimes, that's enough.